A 4-year-old homeless girl finds a millionaire trapped inside an overturned car. She grabs a sledgehammer to try and save him, but moments later, the car explodes and something terrible happens. Prepare yourself for an unforgettable story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. The scorching midday sun beat down on Maple Avenue's asphalt as Lily, just 4 years old, shuffled along the sidewalk with faltering steps, her barefoot soles raw and blistered, her faded blue dress clinging to her skinny frame, soaked with sweat and grime. In her right hand, she gripped tightly a small, rusty sledgehammer she had found in the trash days ago, her sole protection against the dangers of the streets. Hunger gnawed at her stomach with every movement. It had been 3 days since she'd eaten anything but the breadcrumbs she'd scrounged from behind a bakery. Her big, dark eyes scanned every dumpster, every street corner, searching for anything that might ease the pain that ravaged her tiny body. It was strange how a child so small could survive alone on the streets of Springfield, Illinois. Lily couldn't quite remember how she had gotten there, nor why she was alone. Her memories were splintered, like puzzle pieces refusing to connect. Sometimes, she dreamt of a large house with blooming gardens and the sweet scent of lavender in the air. Other times, she heard distant echoes of a woman's voice singing lullabies, but upon waking, the harsh reality of the streets brought her back to the present. The deafening screech of brakes shattered her thoughts. Lily looked up to see a silver Mercedes-Benz skidding precariously across the lane. The visibly nervous driver struggled to control the vehicle as it zigzagged between cars. For an instant, their eyes met through the windshield, a middle-aged man, graying hair, a face tense with worry. Then it happened. The car completely lost control, mounted the median, and violently flipped 3 times before coming to rest upside down just feet from where Lily stood. The impact was so strong that shards of glass flew everywhere, and the metallic clang echoed down the avenue like a scream of pain. For a few seconds, a deathly silence fell over the scene. Other pedestrians cautiously began to approach, some yelling for someone to call an ambulance. But Lily didn't hesitate. Something within her, an instinct she couldn't explain, made her run towards the accident. The man was conscious, trapped amidst the twisted wreckage. Blood trickled from a cut on his forehead, but his eyes remained alert, focused on the approaching girl. When he saw her, his expression changed completely, from panic to something that looked like recognition. "Little one, are you okay?" he murmured with difficulty, trying to move within the debris. Lily knelt beside the overturned car, clutching her sledgehammer with determination. "I'm going to get you out, sir," she said with a firm voice that belied her age. Richard Sterling, a respected textile businessman, looked at the dirty, battered child trying to save him and felt his heart clench. There was something familiar about that face, those eyes, but the pain and shock of the accident prevented him from thinking clearly. Lily began to strike the side window with her sledgehammer, trying to create an opening through which she could help the man exit. Her small hands barely managed to lift the heavy tool, but she wouldn't give up. Blow after blow, tiny cracks began to form in the tempered glass. "No! Stop!" Richard gasped. "It's dangerous. The car might—" But before he could finish the sentence, a strong smell of gasoline began to fill the air. Lily stopped pounding and looked around, confused. The dark liquid spread across the asphalt, forming a puddle that reflected the sunlight sinisterly. "Run, little one! Get out of here!" Richard shouted, his voice filled with desperation. Lily hesitated. Every instinct screamed for her to flee, but something kept her there, beside that man. It was as if an invisible force prevented her from abandoning him. "I won't leave you," she said, determined. It was then that Richard did something unexpected. With great effort, he managed to push a leather briefcase out of the car through the broken window. The briefcase opened upon hitting the ground, scattering papers that flew with the wind. Grab the papers," he whispered. "Important, very important." Lily dropped the sledgehammer and began to gather the scattered documents, not understanding why they were so important to the man trapped in the wreckage. They were white sheets with small lettering, blurred photographs, and some sealed envelopes. The smell of gasoline grew stronger, and people began to shout for everyone to move away. Lily heard sirens in the distance, the ambulance and fire department finally arriving. "Go, please," Richard pleaded, looking directly at her. Lily held the papers against her chest and took a few steps back, but couldn't tear her eyes from the man she had tried to save. There was something in that moment, an inexplicable connection between two souls meeting under the most improbable circumstances. "What's your name, sir?" she asked. "Richard. And yours?" "Lily." He smiled weakly. Lily. A beautiful name. Firefighters arrived running, shouting orders and waving onlookers back. Lily was pushed away but continued to clutch the documents Richard had given her. She watched as rescuers worked to free the businessman from the wreckage. Then, without warning, a deafening explosion ripped through the air. The heat wave from the blast threw Lily several feet backward, tearing the papers from her hands and scattering them again into the wind. Her ears rang, and a sharp pain shot through her left arm, where small burns began to blister her delicate skin. Black smoke billowed from what remained of the Mercedes, forming a dense curtain that obscured the view. When the dust settled, Lily struggled to stand. Her legs trembled, and tears streamed down her dirty face. Where the car with Richard had been, there was now only twisted wreckage and flames that the firefighters struggled to control with hoses. "Richard!" she cried, her tiny voice lost in the surrounding chaos. Sarah Miller, a nurse at Springfield General Hospital, who was passing by the avenue when she heard the explosion, rushed towards the accident site. At 45, with brown hair pulled back in a practical bun and kind eyes, she had developed an instinct to always help in emergencies. It was when she saw Lily staggering among the debris, clearly injured and in shock, that Sarah felt her heart clench. The child clutched some charred papers to her chest, staring fixedly at the remains of the burning car. "Honey, you're hurt," Sarah said, kneeling beside Lily. "Let me see that arm." Lily recoiled instinctively like a wounded animal. "Mr. Richard. Where is Mr. Richard?" Sarah looked at the wreckage and then back at the girl. How could she explain to a 4-year-old that the person she tried to save hadn't survived? He was taken by the medics, honey. We'll take care of you now." The nurse noticed that Lily was visibly malnourished, her hair disheveled, and her clothes indicated she had been living on the streets for some time. But there was something more, a brilliant intelligence in the child's eyes that didn't match her apparent condition. "What's your name?" Sarah asked, as she examined the burns on Lily's arm. "Lily," the girl replied, still looking towards the wreckage. "I tried to save him. He gave me these papers and said they were important." Sarah picked up the charred documents Lily held. Even damaged, she could read some names and numbers, but nothing made immediate sense. There were blurred photographs, partially burned contracts, and something that looked like addresses. "Where are your parents, Lily?" The girl fell silent for a long moment, as if trying to reach a memory that insisted on escaping. "I don't know. I don't remember." A paramedic approached, and Sarah explained the situation. Lily needed medical care for her burns and psychological support after witnessing the traumatic accident. Since there was no family to contact, she would be taken to the hospital and then likely referred to a temporary shelter. "I can go with her," Sarah offered. "I work at the Springfield General. Maybe it's best to have a familiar face around." During the ride to the hospital, Lily remained silent, but Sarah noticed something peculiar. The girl organized the papers saved from the accident with a care and method that seemed far too advanced for her age. She separated the documents by type, putting photographs on one side and contracts on the other, as if she knew exactly what she was doing. At the hospital, while a doctor tended to Lily's burns, Sarah tried to get more information about the child. She called the responsible agencies, but there was no record of a girl, with her characteristics reported missing in recent months. "It's as if she simply doesn't exist in the system," Sarah murmured to herself, observing Lily from the window of the room where the child was resting. Dr. David Chen, a child psychologist at the hospital, came to assess Lily. During their conversation, he was impressed by the girl's vocabulary and articulation, which seemed far above average for her age. "Lily, can you read?" Dr. Chen asked. To everyone's surprise, she picked up a magazine from the table and began to read aloud, with perfect fluency. Not only did she read, but she completely understood the content and asked intelligent questions about the text. "This is unusual," Dr. Chen commented to Sarah. "Would a homeless child develop these skills? And where does this knowledge come from?" Sarah shook her head, equally confused. "There's something different about her. Ever since the accident, I've had the feeling that Lily isn't just an ordinary child who lived on the streets." That night, Lily was placed in a hospital room for observation. Sarah, who had finished her shift, decided to stay a little longer to keep the girl company. It was then that something happened that made her even more intrigued. Lily began to hum a melody softly, a complex classical song that Sarah recognized as Chopin. She wasn't just humming, but making small movements with her fingers, as if playing the piano. "Lily?" Sarah called softly, so as not to startle the girl. Lily immediately stopped playing and turned with a guilty expression on her face. "Sorry, Aunt Sarah, I didn't mean to touch your piano." "It's all right, honey, but where did you learn to play like that?" The girl lowered her head, as she always did when she couldn't explain her abilities. "I don't know. My fingers just know where to press." Sarah sat beside Lily on the piano bench. During these 3 weeks, she had collected a series of evidence about the child's extraordinary capabilities. Lily could do complex math, new words in English and French, and demonstrated knowledge of geography and history that no child her age should possess. "Lily, do you remember anything about where you lived before? A school, perhaps?" "Sometimes I dream of a big house with many windows and beautiful gardens," Lily replied, looking at the piano keys. "There's an older lady who sings to me and it smells like lavender, but when I wake up, I can't quite remember." Just then, the phone rang. It was Dr. David Chen from the hospital. "Sarah, I need to see you. I found out something about Lily that you need to know." An hour later, Sarah was in Dr. Chen's office, while Lily played in the waiting room with puzzles meant for much older children. "I did some discrete tests with her during our sessions," Dr. Chen explained. "Lily's IQ is off the charts. We're talking about exceptional intelligence, almost at the prodigy level." "That explains her abilities," Sarah murmured. "But it doesn't explain how a prodigy ended up living on the streets." "Exactly. And there's something else. Yesterday, during our conversation, she mentioned a specific person. She spoke about an Uncle Richard who used to play with her in the gardens." Sarah felt a chill down her spine. "Richard? Like the man from the accident?" "I believe so. Lily has fragmented memories about someone named Richard Sterling, but she can't consciously access them. It's as if part of her memory has been blocked." Meanwhile, in the office of Sterling Textiles, Edward Sterling desperately searched his brother's personal files. The family company, once prosperous, faced a devastating financial crisis. Unpaid bills accumulated, suppliers cancelled contracts, and employees whispered about layoffs in the hallways. Evelyn Hayes, the family lawyer for 15 years, was present to help with legal procedures, but also noticed something strange in Edward's behavior. He seemed more concerned with Richard's belongings than with the emotional aspects of the loss. "Edward, are you all right? I know it's difficult, but—" "The papers, Evelyn. I need to find all of Richard's papers. There were things, projects he kept secret." The lawyer frowned. "What kind of projects?" "I don't know exactly, but in recent months he'd been very secretive, holding strange meetings, moving money without consulting me." What Edward didn't know was that at that very moment, the papers he desperately sought were in the hands of a 4-year-old girl who had tried to save his brother, and that these documents contained secrets capable of shaking the entire Sterling family structure. 3 weeks had passed since Lily arrived at Sarah's house, and the girl's transformation was remarkable. The small 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Springfield felt like a welcoming home, with children's drawings on the refrigerator and toys scattered across the living room. But it was Lily's behavior that intrigued Sarah more each day. That Tuesday morning, Sarah was preparing breakfast when she heard a sound from the living room that made her stop everything. Lily was sitting at the old piano that had belonged to Sarah's mother, playing a complex piece with impeccable technique. Her small fingers danced across the keys with a precision that would impress any music teacher. "Lily," Sarah called softly, so as not to scare the girl. Lily immediately stopped playing and turned, with a guilty expression on her face. "Sorry, Aunt Sarah, I didn't mean to play your piano." "It's no problem, sweetie, but where did you learn to play like that?" The girl lowered her head, as she always did when she couldn't explain her abilities. "I don't know. My fingers just know where to go." Sarah sat beside Lily on the piano bench. During these 3 weeks, she had gathered a series of evidence about the child's extraordinary abilities. Lily could do complex math, new words in English and French, and demonstrated knowledge of geography and history that no child her age should possess. "Lily, do you remember anything about where you lived before? A school, perhaps? Sometimes I dream of a big house with lots of windows and beautiful gardens, Lily answered, looking at the piano keys. There's an older lady who sings to me, and it smells like lavender. But when I wake up, I can't quite remember. Just then the phone rang. It was Dr. David Chen from the hospital. Sarah, I need to meet you. I found out something about Lily that you need to know. An hour later, Sarah was in Dr. Chen's office, while Lily played in the waiting room with puzzles meant for much older children. I conducted some discrete tests with her during our sessions, Dr. Chen explained. Lily's IQ is extremely high. We're talking about exceptional intelligence, almost at the prodigy level. That explains her abilities, Sarah murmured. But it doesn't explain how a prodigy ended up living on the streets. Exactly. And there's something else. Yesterday, during our conversation, she mentioned a specific person. She spoke about an Uncle Richard who used to play with her in the gardens. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Richard? Like the man from the accident? I believe so. Lily has fragmented memories about someone named Richard Sterling, but she can't consciously access them. It's as if part of her memory has been blocked. Meanwhile, in the office of Sterling Textiles, Edward Sterling desperately searched his brother's personal files. The family company, once prosperous, faced a devastating financial crisis. Unpaid bills accumulated, suppliers cancelled contracts, and employees whispered about layoffs in the hallways. Evelyn Hayes, the family lawyer for 15 years, was present to help with legal procedures, but also noticed something strange in Edward's behavior. He seemed more concerned with Richard's belongings than with the emotional aspects of the loss. Edward, are you all right? I know it's difficult, but... The papers, Evelyn. I need to find all of Richard's papers. There were things, projects he kept secret. The lawyer frowned. What kind of projects? I don't know exactly, but in recent months he'd been very secretive, holding strange meetings, moving money without consulting me. What Edward didn't know was that at that very moment, the papers he desperately sought were in the hands of a 4-year-old girl who had tried to save his brother, and that these documents contained secrets capable of shaking the entire Sterling family structure. That afternoon, Sarah decided to do her own investigation. She took Lily for a walk through downtown Springfield, purposely passing by the Sterling Textiles company. She wanted to see if the girl would have any reaction to seeing the place where Richard worked. When they arrived in front of the commercial building, Lily abruptly stopped and grabbed Sarah's hand tightly. I know this place, she murmured, staring fixedly at the facade. How do you know it, sweetie? Uncle Richard brought me here a few times. He had a big office with lots of papers and a huge desk. Sarah felt her heart race. Lily, can you remember anything else about Uncle Richard? The girl closed her eyes, as if trying to reach for distant memories. He was very kind. He always brought me candy and told me stories. He said I was special and that someday I would go back home for real. And where was your real home? A big house with gardens. But there are bad people who didn't want me to stay there. Just then, Edward Sterling exited the commercial building, visibly disturbed after discovering more evidence of Richard's secret spending. When he saw Sarah and Lily standing on the sidewalk, something in his subconscious stirred. He stopped and stared fixedly at the girl. There was something familiar about that face, that posture, but he couldn't identify what. Lily also noticed him and hid behind Sarah, whispering, "That man looks like Uncle Richard." Edward approached hesitantly. "Excuse me, are you all right?" The little girl seemed scared. "We're fine, thank you," Sarah replied, instinctively protecting Lily. "It's just..." She reminded me of someone. "Sorry to bother you." After Edward walked away, Sarah looked at Lily, who was trembling slightly. "Do you know that man?" "I don't know, but he scares me. There's something about him that reminds me of bad things." That night, Sarah made a risky decision. She took the documents saved from the accident, which she had carefully preserved, and began to examine each one under a magnifying glass. Most were damaged by fire, but she managed to decipher some addresses and names. One document in particular caught her attention. It was a contract for special care for a rural property, signed by Richard Sterling. The address was partially legible. Rural Road 247, Mile 15. If Lily really knew Richard, maybe this property holds answers, Sarah thought. But what she didn't know was that her investigation was about to place her at the center of a much more complex and dangerous mystery than she imagined. On the rural property mentioned in the contract, secrets awaited discovery. Secrets that would explain not only who Lily was, but why some people would do anything to ensure she never recovered her memories. On the other side of the city, Jessica Miller, Sarah's sister, who had been living in Chicago for 3 years, received a call that sent a chill of dread through her. "Jessica, it's me, Sarah. I need to ask you a question about your previous job in Springfield. Do you know a child named Lily?" On the other end of the line, Jessica was silent for a long moment before answering with a trembling voice. "Sarah, where did you hear that name?" "It's a long story. Why are you like this?" I can't talk about this over the phone. It's too dangerous." And the call was abruptly cut off, leaving Sarah with more questions than answers, and with the terrible feeling that she had stumbled upon something much bigger than a simple search for the origin of a lost child. The abruptly cut call left Sarah restless all night. She knew Jessica well enough to know that her sister wasn't easily rattled, and the fear in her voice had been unmistakable. During the 3 years they had lived apart, the two had kept in regular contact, but Jessica had always been evasive about the reasons for her sudden move to Chicago. The next morning, Lily woke up screaming from a nightmare. Sarah rushed into the room and found the girl sweaty and trembling, clutching the sheets as if they were her only protection. "It was just a bad dream, honey," Sarah consoled, hugging Lily. "It wasn't a dream," Lily murmured between sobs. "I remembered something. There was a house where I lived, but bad people wanted to hurt me. Uncle Richard hid me in a safe place." "What kind of bad people?" "Men in suits who yelled a lot. They said things about money, and that I was a problem." Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine. Lily's fragmented memories were beginning to form a disturbing pattern, suggesting that the child had been deliberately hidden from some threat. That same day, Edward Sterling made a discovery that completely changed his perspective on the last months of Richard's life. Sifting through bank documents, he found a series of regular transfers to an account in the name of Tomorrow's Promise, an institution that, according to his research, did not officially exist. "Evelyn, I need you to investigate this account," he said, showing the statements to the lawyer. "Edward, there's something I need to tell you," Evelyn said with hesitation. "In recent months, Richard approached me several times with strange requests. He wanted documents about child custody, identity changes, and witness protection." "Witness protection? Was Richard involved in something illegal?" "I don't believe it was illegal, but he was clearly protecting someone, and from the documents we found, it appears to be a child." Edward stood up abruptly and walked to his office window. "A child? That would explain the expenses for caretakers and the rural property." "There's one more thing," Evelyn continued. "I managed to trace the address of the rural property. It's registered in the name of a minor, but the child's identity is protected by a court order." Meanwhile, Sarah had made a risky decision. Even without official authorization, she decided to take Lily to the rural property mentioned in the documents. Perhaps seeing the location would awaken more memories in the girl and provide clues about her past. Rural Road 247 wound through green fields on the outskirts of Springfield. Lily, who had been quiet for most of the trip, began to grow restless as they approached mile 15. "I know this place," she said suddenly, pointing to a dirt road entrance flanked by eucalyptus trees. Sarah followed the secondary road until they reached a large colonial-style house surrounded by well-kept gardens. The property was beautiful, but there was something melancholic in the air, as if the place held painful secrets. Lily got out of the car and ran towards the gardens, as if her feet knew exactly where to go. "My tree!" she cried, hugging the trunk of a century-old jaboticaba tree. "I used to play here every day." Sarah followed her, observing how Lily moved through the property with complete familiarity. The girl ran to a specific area of the garden and pointed to the ground. "Here I buried my favorite doll when the bad men came," she said casually. With her heart pounding, Sarah picked up a branch and began to dig in the spot Lily indicated. To her astonishment, there really was something buried there. A small porcelain doll wrapped in fabric, preserved from moisture. "It's her!" Lily exclaimed, hugging the doll as if reuniting with an old friend. "Isabel, Uncle Richard said she would be safe here until I came back." Just then, an elderly woman appeared on the porch of the house. She had white hair pulled back in a bun and wore a floral apron. When she saw Lily, her hands flew to her chest in a gesture of surprise. "My goodness! Lily, is that really you?" The girl looked at the woman and a smile lit up her face. Miss Martha, you still live here? The woman hurried down from the porch, tears in her eyes. My dear girl, I thought I'd never see you again. Sarah observed the emotional reunion between Lily and the woman who had clearly cared for her in the past. Martha Perkins, 67, was a simple woman but with intelligent eyes who hugged Lily as if she were her own granddaughter. Miss Martha, I'm Sarah Miller. I'm temporarily caring for Lily, Sarah explained. Could you tell us what happened here? Martha's expression immediately darkened. Come in. Let's talk inside. It's not safe to talk about these things in the yard. The interior of the house was cozy and well-maintained, with antique furniture and photographs on the walls. Lily ran to a specific room, which had clearly been hers, and began to play with toys that were stored exactly where she had left them. I was hired by Mr. Richard to care for the property and the girl 2 years ago, Martha began, serving coffee to Sarah. He brought Lily here in a state of terror, saying she was in danger. What kind of danger? Family disputes. There were people who wanted to use the child for blackmail or to gain access to an inheritance. Mr. Richard said Lily's family had been torn apart by greed and that some members would do anything to get the money. Sarah felt a knot in her stomach. And what happened for Lily to leave here? 3 months ago, strange men started lurking around the property. Mr. Richard became desperate and said he needed to move Lily to an even safer place. He took the girl one night and I never knew what happened to her again. But how did she end up on the streets? Martha shook her head sadly. I don't know, but Mr. Richard was very nervous in recent weeks. He said he had discovered something terrible about Lily's family and that he needed to protect her at all costs. Just then, Lily ran back from the living room with something in her hands, a framed photograph showing herself next to a young, elegant woman. Look, Aunt Sarah, it's my mom. Sarah took the photograph and felt the world spin around her. The woman in the photo was identical to the one in the documents saved from the accident, the same one marked as Isabel. Miss Martha, who is this woman in the photo? Isabel Sterling, Lily's mother. She passed away in a car accident when the girl was 2 years old. It was from then on that all the problems with the inheritance and family disputes began. The last name hit Sarah like a bolt of lightning. Sterling? Lily is from the Sterling family? She's Isabel's daughter, who was Richard's cousin. But not everyone in the family accepted that such a young child would inherit part of the family fortune. Some thought the money should stay with the adults. Sarah suddenly understood the magnitude of the situation. Lily was not just any abandoned child. She was an heiress to one of Springfield's wealthiest families, and her very life was at risk because of the greed of relatives who wanted her share of the inheritance. Miss Martha, we need to leave here right now, Sarah said, picking Lily up. If those people find out she's here. But it was already too late. The sound of cars approaching along the dirt road echoed through the gardens, and through the curtains, Sarah saw 2 dark vehicles stopping in front of the house. They found us, Martha whispered, her face pale with terror. Lily clung to Sarah's neck, trembling. It's the bad men, Aunt Sarah. They've come for me again. Martha reacted quickly, taking Lily and Sarah by the hand and leading them to the back of the house. There's a passage in the back that leads directly to the woods, she whispered, opening a side door disguised among creeping plants. Richard had it built specifically for emergencies like this. The sound of car doors slamming echoed through the yard, followed by harsh male voices. Sarah held Lily tightly as the 3 ran along the narrow trail that snaked through eucalyptus trees and native forest. Behind them, they heard heavy footsteps invading the house and voices shouting orders. Search all the rooms. She has to be here. The bed in the child's room is still warm. They just left. Lily cried softly against Sarah's shoulder but made no noise. It was as if the girl instinctively knew that their lives depended on silence. Martha guided them along a trail she knew by heart, leading them to a small abandoned cabin in the middle of the woods. We can stay here for a few hours, the elderly woman gasped, locking the dilapidated wooden door. They don't know this part of the property. Sarah was trembling, not just from fear, but from anger. Who are these men? Why do they want to harm a child so much? They're not just ordinary men, Martha explained, checking the windows to make sure they were securely closed. They're hired by some members of the Sterling family who want to eliminate any obstacle to the inheritance. Eliminate? The word came out of Sarah's mouth as a horrified whisper. Lily inherited a considerable fortune when her mother passed, Martha continued. But as long as she's alive, other relatives can't access that money. Richard discovered that some family members were planning something terrible against the girl. Lily, who had stopped crying, looked up at the two women. Uncle Richard told me that some bad uncles wanted to hurt me because of Mom's money. That's why he brought me to live here with Miss Martha. But why didn't Richard report these people to the authorities? Sarah asked. Because he didn't have concrete proof, Martha replied. And besides, some of these people have influence in the city. Richard knew that the only way to protect Lily was to keep her hidden until she was old enough to defend herself. Meanwhile, back at the house, the men rummaged through each room, searching for clues about Lily's whereabouts. They were three individuals dressed in dark suits, all with the same cold, determined expression. The group's leader, a tall, thin man with a scar on his face, found some recently used toys in the child's room. She was here today, he said to his companions, and she can't have gone far. Boss, I found this, one of the men said, showing female shoe prints in the soft earth near the side door. Follow the tracks, and when you find the girl, remember the orders. No unnecessary violence. We need it to look like an accident. In the hidden cabin, Sarah made a decision that would change everything. Miss Martha, I need to call someone. There's a person who can help us. With trembling hands, she dialed Dr. David Chen's number, the psychologist who had followed Lily's case at the hospital. She knew he had contacts with social workers and might be able to activate official protection. Dr. Chen? It's Sarah. I'm with Lily in a very dangerous situation and we need help. Sarah, where are you? I can hear you're scared. I found out who Lily is. She's from the Sterling family, and there are people trying to find us, people who want to harm her. On the other end of the line, Dr. Chen was silent for a moment. Sarah, this is very serious. I'll call my contacts at the public defender's office and the juvenile court. But you need to get out of there and go somewhere safe. Where can we go? I don't know who to trust. There's a confidential safe house for extreme cases. I'll give you the address, but you need to get there without being followed. As Sarah wrote down the information, Lily approached a window in the cabin and watched the woods. Suddenly, she turned with wide eyes. Aunt Sarah, someone's coming here. Martha ran to the window and saw a figure moving slowly through the vegetation towards the cabin. We have to go now. But when they opened the back door, they found themselves surrounded. 3 men had strategically positioned themselves around the small building, blocking all escape routes. Come out slowly with your hands where we can see them, an authoritative voice shouted. We don't want to hurt anyone. We just want to talk. Sarah held Lily close, feeling the girl's heart beating wildly. What do you want? The scarred man approached, maintaining an apparently calm expression. We just want to take the girl back to where she belongs, with her true family. She's already with her true family, Sarah replied, with a courage she didn't know she possessed. I'm her legal guardian. Temporary documents have no value when it comes to blood, the man said, pulling some papers from his pocket. We have a court order here determining that Lily be handed over to the care of her closest relative. Martha came closer and examined the documents. These papers are fake, she said flatly. I know the Sterling family lawyer's handwriting, and this isn't it. The man's mask of civility began to slip. Old woman, you shouldn't get involved in matters you don't understand. It was at that moment that something unexpected happened. From the depths of the woods, other voices emerged, and the sound of breaking branches indicated that more people were approaching. The 3 men turned nervously, clearly not expecting this complication. Police! Everyone on the ground with your hands on your heads! Dr. Chen had managed to mobilize help faster than they imagined. A team from the juvenile court, accompanied by police officers, had tracked Sarah's cell phone and arrived at the property just in time. The 3 men tried to flee but were quickly surrounded and apprehended. During the search, it was discovered that they were carrying fake documents and sophisticated communication equipment. Who hired you? Asked the detective in charge of the operation. The scarred man remained silent, but one of his companions, clearly nervous about the situation, eventually revealed valuable information. We were just following orders. There was a very high amount involved. Someone in the family itself wanted the girl to disappear. Who in the family? The detective insisted. We don't know the real name. We only knew our contact, a lawyer who met us in different locations. As the men were led away, Sarah hugged Lily tightly, still trembling from the traumatic events. The girl, despite the scare, showed impressive maturity for her 4 years. Aunt Sarah, now I can tell you something important, Lily said seriously. I remembered more things about the bad men. What did you remember, honey? Uncle Richard showed me pictures of them before bringing me here. He said if I saw any of these men, I should run and hide. But there's one person who's even more dangerous than them. Who? Someone I know. Someone who seems nice, but who has bad eyes. And that person knows where I am now. Sarah looked at Dr. Chen, who had witnessed the entire operation, and saw her own concern reflected in his eyes. If Lily was right, it meant that the true enemy was still at large, and probably someone close to the family, someone everyone trusted. Lily, can you remember who this person is? The girl closed her eyes, concentrating intensely. It's someone who always comes to Uncle Richard's house, a person who speaks nicely but has bad eyes, and that person knows where I am now. The confidential safe house was located in a quiet residential neighborhood of Springfield, disguised as an ordinary residence among other middle-class homes. Sarah and Lily were taken there after the traumatic events at the rural property, where they would be under protection until authorities could ensure their definitive safety. Dr. Chen accompanied the transfer and now watched Lily play in the protected backyard of the safe house, while talking with Sarah about the next steps. I need to ask a difficult question, he said. Lily mentioned that she recognizes the true enemy. Do you have any suspicion of who it might be? I've been thinking about this all night, Sarah replied, looking out the window to make sure Lily was safe. She said it's someone who visited Richard regularly, someone who speaks nicely but has bad eyes. Just then, the house phone rang. The social worker responsible for the place answered, and after a brief conversation turned to Sarah with a worried expression. It was from the courthouse. Edward Sterling is demanding an urgent hearing to discuss custody of his great-niece. He claims to have family rights over the child. Sarah felt a chill down her spine. Edward Sterling? Richard's brother? Exactly. And according to the social worker, he's accompanied by a very influential lawyer in the city. Dr. Chen frowned. This could be a coincidence, or it could be exactly the person Lily fears. Sarah finished. Meanwhile, at the Sterling Textiles executive office, Edward was receiving information about the failed operation at the rural property. Evelyn Hayes was by his side, seemingly calm, but her eyes betrayed growing tension. The men we hired were arrested, Edward informed, hanging up the phone. The operation was a complete disaster. Edward, we need to reconsider our strategy, Evelyn said in a controlled voice. Perhaps it's time to approach the situation legally, through the courts. Legally? Edward turned to her, his face red with rage. Evelyn, as long as this girl is alive, our company will go bankrupt. Richard left everything to her, everything, and we're left with the debts and the responsibility of maintaining hundreds of jobs. But she's just a child. Surely we can find a way to manage the inheritance until she reaches adulthood. Edward walked to the window, watching the street below. You don't understand, Evelyn. It's not just about managing money. Lily represents a much bigger problem. If she grows up and discovers the whole truth about what happened to her mother. The lawyer paled. What do you mean, what happened to her mother? Isabel's accident wasn't really an accident, was it? The silence that followed was deafening. Evelyn slowly rose from her chair, beginning to comprehend the magnitude of the implications of what Edward had just insinuated. Edward, are you telling me that... I'm saying that some problems were solved permanently in the past, and that Lily could become a similar problem if she starts asking the wrong questions. Back at the safe house, Lily had stopped playing and was sitting on the floor, hugging a new doll the social worker had given her. But her behavior changed abruptly when she saw a car pull up in front of the house. "Aunt Sarah!" she cried, running inside. "It's her, the woman with the bad eyes." Sarah ran to the window and saw Evelyn Hayes emerging from a luxurious car, impeccably dressed and carrying a leather briefcase. The lawyer was talking on her cell phone as she approached the house door. "Dr. Chen, it's her," Sarah whispered. The person Lily feared. Lily hid behind the sofa, visibly trembling. She always came to Uncle Richard's house. She spoke nicely to him, but when she thought no one was watching, she looked at me like she wanted me to disappear. The doorbell rang, and the social worker went to answer it. Through the conversation in the hall, they could hear Evelyn introducing herself and demanding to see Lily immediately. "I have a temporary court order granting visitation rights to Mr. Edward Sterling, the miner's great-uncle," Evelyn said in her most convincing professional tone. "I'll need to verify that documentation," the social worker replied. "Naturally, but I would like to emphasize that any obstacle to the enforcement of this order can result in legal consequences for this institution." Dr. Chen approached Sarah. "I need to make some urgent calls. Something isn't right with this whole situation. As Dr. Chen discreetly spoke with his contacts in the judicial system, Sarah observed Lily, who had begun drawing compulsively on a sheet of paper. The drawing showed a long-haired woman next to a car, and the woman had a large red X over her face. "Lily, what is this drawing?" "It's the woman with the bad eyes near my mom's car," Lily said without looking up from the paper. "Uncle Richard showed me a similar picture and was very sad." Sarah's heart almost stopped. "Lily, are you saying this woman was present when your mom had the accident?" "She was there when Mom got hurt in the car. Uncle Richard found out and was very angry with her." Just then, Dr. Chen returned with a grim expression. "Sarah, I got information about the court order Evelyn presented. It's fake. The judge who supposedly signed it has been on vacation for 2 weeks. So she's here illegally," Sarah whispered. "Worse than that. If she forged judicial documents, it means she's desperate. And desperate people can do very dangerous things." In the front room, the conversation between Evelyn and the social worker was becoming more tense. The lawyer had realized that her fake documentation was being questioned and changed her strategy. "Listen, I just want to talk to the girl for a few minutes," she said, trying to sound maternal. "I've been the family lawyer for years. She knows me and trusts me. I'm sorry, but the rules of this house are very clear. Without valid documentation, there's no visitation." It was then that Evelyn made a fatal mistake. Annoyed by the resistance, she let her true personality slip. "You don't understand the gravity of this situation," she said coldly. "This girl is a problem that needs to be solved, and I came here to solve it." The social worker immediately activated the silent alarm of the house, alerting authorities about a possible threat. But Evelyn, realizing she had exposed herself, tried to force her way into the house. "Where is Lily?" she shouted, pushing the social worker. "I know she's here." Sarah held Lily firmly and the two ran to the back bedroom, locking the door. Dr. Chen tried to restrain her, but Evelyn had completely lost her composure. "You don't understand," she screamed. "If this girl discovers the truth about what happened to Isabel, we'll all be in danger. Edward isn't the only one involved in this." "Who else is involved?" Dr. Chen asked, trying to buy time until the police arrived. "People you can't even imagine. People who turned a blind eye to certain irregularities in exchange for financial benefits. Isabel's accident was just the beginning." In the locked room, Lily looked at Sarah with a frightening maturity for her 4 years. "Aunt Sarah, now I remember everything. The woman with the bad eyes hurt my mom because my mom found out she was stealing money from Uncle Richard. And what else do you remember, honey? She's not alone. There are other bad people who helped her, and they think if I disappear, no one will ever find out the truth." The sound of approaching sirens brought temporary relief, but Sarah knew the real battle was just beginning. Lily had remembered information that could shatter several powerful people in Springfield, and that made her more vulnerable than ever. Evelyn Hayes's arrest caused an earthquake in Springfield society. The news that one of the city's most respected lawyers had tried to kidnap a child spread quickly, but what was most shocking was the discovery that she was involved in a much more complex and sinister plot. The day after the events at the safe house, Sarah received a call that would once again change the course of the situation. It was Jessica, her sister, who had traveled during the night from Chicago to Springfield after hearing the news in the papers. "Sarah, I'm arriving at the bus terminal now. We need to talk urgently about Lily," Jessica said with a choked voice. "There are things you need to know, things that explain why I fled Springfield 3 years ago." An hour later, the two sisters met at the safe house, where Lily remained under police protection. Jessica, at 41, was visibly distraught, with deep dark circles under her eyes and slightly trembling hands. It was evident that carrying those secrets for so long had taken a heavy toll. "Jessica, why did you never tell me you knew Lily?" Sarah asked as soon as they hugged. "Because I was scared," Jessica replied, tears streaming down her face. "Scared that what happened to me would happen to you too." Dr. Chen, who was present to assist in the gradual revelation of the truth to Lily, joined the conversation. "Jessica, can you tell us what really happened?" Jessica took a deep breath before starting. 3 years ago, I worked as an educator at a private institution called Tomorrow's Promise Institute. It was a beautiful place, with huge gardens and an immaculate structure. Officially, it was a kind of special school for gifted children. "And Lily was there?" Sarah asked. Lily was the only permanent child in the institution. There were other children who came during the day, but she lived there. Richard personally hired me to be her teacher and caretaker. Lily, who was playing quietly in a corner of the room, looked up when she heard the conversation. "Aunt Jessica," she exclaimed, running to hug the woman she clearly recognized. "My little princess," Jessica said, embracing Lily emotionally. "How you've grown in these 3 years." "Why did you leave without saying goodbye?" Lily asked with a child's innocence. "I was very sad." Jessica looked at Sarah before answering. "Because Aunt Jessica discovered very ugly things about people we knew, and she had to leave to stay safe." Dr. Chen approached. "Jessica, can you be more specific about what you discovered?" "I discovered that Tomorrow's Promise wasn't just a school. It was a complex money laundering operation, using Lily's education as a front. Richard was being blackmailed to keep the institution running, while Evelyn and her partners embezzled funds from the Sterling Company." Sarah felt nauseous. They were using a child as a shield for criminal activities? "Worse than that," Jessica continued. "When Lily's mother, Isabel, found out about the embezzlement, she threatened to expose everything. That's when the accident that killed her happened." The silence that followed was heavy. Lily, despite her young age, seemed to understand the gravity of what was being discussed. She snuggled into Jessica's lap and remained quiet, but attentive. "How did you find all this out?" Dr. Chen asked. "By accident. One night I stayed working late at Tomorrow's Promise, preparing teaching materials for Lily. I heard voices coming from the administration office and recognized Evelyn's voice arguing with a man I didn't know. What were they discussing? How to permanently get rid of Lily. They had tried several legal approaches to access her inheritance, but Richard always protected the girl. Evelyn said it might be time for a more permanent solution, as had been done with Isabel." Sarah grabbed her sister's hand. "My God, Jessica, why didn't you report this to the authorities?" "I tried, but when I got to the police station the next day, I found out that the detective in charge was a personal friend of Evelyn's. He told me I was confused and that I might need psychological help." "So you ran away?" "I ran because that same night, after my visit to the police station, my apartment was broken into. Nothing was stolen, but everything was ransacked. It was a clear message. They knew I had overheard." Just then, the house phone rang. The social worker answered, and after a brief conversation, addressed the group with a grave expression. It was from the prison. Evelyn Hayes asked to make a statement in exchange for a reduced sentence. She wants to reveal the names of everyone involved in the conspiracy. Dr. Chen stood up. "This could be the breakthrough we needed. If she really cooperates—" "Be careful," Jessica interrupted. "Evelyn is extremely intelligent and manipulative. If she's offering to cooperate, it's because she has a plan." A few hours later at the prison, Evelyn was sitting in an interrogation room, seemingly calm and composed. The prosecutor in charge of the case was present, along with representatives from the juvenile court. "Ms. Hayes, are you willing to reveal information about the conspiracy against the minor Lily Sterling?" "I am," Evelyn replied in a firm voice. "But I want guarantees that my cooperation will be considered in my sentence." "That will depend on the quality of the information provided. Let's start. Who else was involved besides you?" Evelyn hesitated for a moment, as if weighing her options. "Edward Sterling was the mastermind of the entire operation. He found out about Lily's inheritance when Isabel died and created the plan to access the assets." "And how exactly did they plan to do that?" "Initially, we tried legal approaches. We questioned Richard's capacity as guardian, argued that a child couldn't manage such a fortune. But Richard had surrounded himself with competent lawyers who blocked all our attempts." "Was that when you decided on the more drastic approach?" "The idea was to make Lily disappear in a way that looked like a common kidnapping. With her out of the way, Edward would automatically inherit as the closest relative." The prosecutor made careful notes. "And her mother Isabel's accident?" Evelyn lowered her eyes for the first time. Isabel had discovered irregularities in the company's accounting books. She was very intelligent and had noticed discrepancies in the financial reports. When she started asking questions, "Are you confessing participation in the murder of Isabel Sterling?" "I am confessing that Edward took steps to permanently silence her, and that I helped cover up the facts." While this confession was being recorded at the prison, back at the safe house, another drama unfolded. Lily had begun to have a severe anxiety attack, screaming and struggling in Sarah's arms. "They're coming for me. They're going to hurt me like they hurt Mom." Dr. Chen tried to calm her, but the girl was in a state of total panic. "Lily, you're safe. No one will hurt you. The man who looks like Uncle Richard is bad too," she cried between sobs. He was with the woman with the bad eyes. I remembered. Jessica knelt beside Lily. What did you remember, sweetie? Uncle Edward was at the house when Mom fought with them. He yelled at her and said she was causing trouble. Then Mom got very scared and said she was going to take me away. And that's when the accident happened? The next day, Mom was packing our things to leave when the phone rang. It was Uncle Edward saying he wanted to apologize and had a surprise for me. Sarah and Jessica exchanged glances, understanding the sinister implication of Lily's words. Mom didn't want to go, but Uncle Edward said that if she didn't, bad things would happen to me, so she took me in the car. And you went to meet him? Yes, but when we got to the place, there were other people there too. The woman with the bad eyes was there, and they did something to Mom's car. The final revelation had come through the innocent memory of a 4-year-old, but its implications were devastating for everyone involved in the conspiracy. Lily's revelations hit the authorities like a bomb. Within hours, a police operation was mounted to arrest Edward Sterling, who was still in his office, oblivious to the fact that his participation in his sister-in-law's murder had been discovered through the memories of a 4-year-old. When the police arrived at Sterling Textiles, they found Edward burning documents in a dumpster in the back parking lot. Upon seeing the patrol cars, he tried to flee, but was quickly surrounded and apprehended. Edward Sterling, you are under arrest for conspiracy, money laundering, and participation in the murder of Isabel Sterling, the detective announced as the handcuffs were placed. This is absurd, Edward shouted, struggling against the officers. You can't prove anything. It's the word of a traumatized child against mine. But during the search of his office, investigators found evidence that could not be destroyed in time. Recordings of phone conversations, bank documents showing suspicious transfers, and even more incriminating, a flash drive hidden in his safe containing detailed records of the entire operation. At the safe house, Sarah watched Lily draw peacefully, as if the traumatic revelation of the previous night had lifted a weight she had carried for years. The girl seemed lighter, more present, as if she could finally process her memories without fear. Aunt Sarah, now that the bad men have been caught, can I go home? Lily asked, looking up from her drawing. Which home, honey? With you. You're my family now. Sarah's heart swelled with emotion, but she knew the legal situation was complex. With Edward arrested and Evelyn confessing her crimes, the question of Lily's guardianship would need to be formally resolved. Dr. Chen arrived with important news. Sarah, I just received a call from the courthouse. With the arrest of those involved in the conspiracy, the judge handling the case wants to expedite the adoption process. Lily needs stability, and you've clearly provided that for her. But what about the inheritance and the Sterling family assets? That's being investigated by a special commission. Apparently, a large part of the fortune was embezzled over the years, but there are life insurance policies and real estate that still legally belong to Lily. Jessica, who had been quiet since the revelations about Lily's identity, joined the conversation. There's something else you need to know. During my 3 years in Chicago, I continued researching Tomorrow's Promise and discovered that there were other children involved in the scheme. Other children? Sarah asked, alarmed. Children from wealthy families who had lost their parents under suspicious circumstances. They were kept in similar institutions while their assets were managed by corrupt guardians. Dr. Chen stood up abruptly. Jessica, that means we're talking about a much larger criminal network than we imagined. Exactly. Evelyn and Edward were just part of a nationwide scheme. Lily was one of the few children who managed to escape because Richard discovered what was happening and tried to protect her. Just then, the phone rang again. It was the prosecutor handling the case with an urgent update on the interrogations at the prison. Dr. Chen, we have a situation here. Evelyn is revealing names of judges, prosecutors, and businessmen involved in the scheme. We're talking about dozens of people in positions of power. And Edward? Edward is trying to deny everything, but the evidence is overwhelming. We found records showing that he planned to eliminate Lily as soon as she turned 5, the age at which she theoretically could start asking questions about her family. The calculated coldness of the plan shocked everyone. Lily was not just a child in danger. She was a survivor of a scheme that had cost her mother's life and potentially the lives of other children in similar situations. 2 days later, Lily had to give her testimony to the authorities, but in a special way, with psychological support and in a controlled environment. Dr. Chen conducted the session, using toys and drawings to help the girl express her memories without re-traumatizing her. Lily, can you tell me about the day your mother had the accident? Dr. Chen asked gently. Lily picked up a doll representing a woman and another representing a man. Mommy was very nervous when Uncle Edward called. She didn't want to go meet him, but he said that if she didn't, they would hurt me. And what happened when you arrived at the designated location? There was a car repair shop. The woman with the bad eyes was there with other men. They took Mom out of our car and put her in another car, a car they had tampered with. Tampered with how? Lily gesticulated with her hands, trying to explain. They had broken something in the car. The man from the shop showed them and said that when Mom pressed the brake, the car would go into the ditch. The precision of the details revealed by Lily was chilling. Her memory, apparently suppressed by trauma, now returned with photographic clarity, providing evidence that could definitively convict the culprits. And what happened to you that day? Uncle Edward said I was going to stay with him for a few days, that it was a surprise. But I cried a lot when I saw Mom leave in the broken car. Did you know the car was broken? I tried to warn Mom, but Uncle Edward held me and said it was a secret. He said if I told anyone, bad things would happen. The recordings of Lily's testimony were immediately forwarded to the district attorney's office, providing the final testimony needed to close the case against Edward and all those involved in the conspiracy. That afternoon, surprising news arrived through Dr. Chen. Sarah, I just received a call from the lawyer handling Richard's estate. Apparently he left a will that could only be opened after Edward's arrest. A will? But he didn't expect to die in the accident. It wasn't about his death. It was about Lily's case. Richard had predicted that Edward would eventually be discovered and left specific instructions about the girl's future. Jessica approached. What kind of instructions? Richard designated you, Sarah, as Lily's preferred guardian. He had investigated your background, your qualifications as a nurse, your personality. He even had photographs of you that he had obtained discreetly. Sarah was in shock. He knew me before the accident. Apparently, yes, and furthermore, he left substantial financial resources in a fund to ensure Lily's education and well-being until she reached adulthood. You were handpicked to care for her. The revelation completely changed the perspective on recent events. The meeting between Sarah and Lily after the accident had not been a coincidence. It had been orchestrated by a desperate man who knew his days were numbered and wanted to ensure the child he protected had a secure future. There's one more thing, Dr. Chen continued. Richard left a letter for Lily to be delivered when she turns 18, and a letter for you, Sarah, that can be delivered now. With trembling hands, Sarah received the sealed envelope with her name written in Richard's careful handwriting. When she opened it and read the contents, tears began to stream down her face. What did he write? Jessica asked. He says, he observed my dedication to patients at the hospital, my patience with traumatized children, my moral integrity. He knew Lily would need someone like me to heal completely. The letter revealed that Richard had spent months researching Sarah's past, discovering that she herself had lost her parents young and been raised by loving relatives. He saw in her the perfect person to give Lily the love and stability she deserved. As Sarah finished reading the letter, Lily approached and held her hand. Aunt Sarah, Uncle Richard was very smart. He chose you to be my mum from the beginning, didn't he? He did, honey, and I'm going to take care of you forever. But even with all the revelations and arrests, a final mystery remained that would change everything once again. 3 weeks after Edward and Evelyn's arrest, when everything finally seemed to be heading for a peaceful resolution, an unexpected discovery turned the case upside down. Dr. Chen received an urgent call from a DNA lab in Chicago, where he had sent samples to definitively confirm Lily's identity as Isabel Sterling's daughter. Dr. Chen, I need to speak with you personally, said the tense voice of the lab technician. The results we obtained are unusual. 2 hours later, Dr. Chen was in his office with Sarah and Jessica, holding a sealed envelope with the results. Lily played in the safe house backyard, oblivious to the fact that her identity was being questioned again. What did the lab discover? Sarah asked, nervous about Dr. Chen's grim expression. Lily is not Isabel Sterling's biological daughter. The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica was the first to speak. That's impossible. I saw photos of Isabel pregnant. I saw birth certificates. Documents that could have been forged, Dr. Chen replied. The lab cross-referenced with genetic material from Richard and Edward. Lily has no biological relation to any member of the Sterling family. Sarah felt the world spin around her. But then who is she? Where did she come from? Why did Richard protect her so much? That's the question we urgently need to answer. Because if Lily isn't a Sterling, the entire case we built collapses. The inheritance, the motivation for the crimes, everything changes completely. Just then, a call came that complicated the situation even further. It was from the prison, informing that Evelyn had requested a new hearing. She claimed to have vital information about Lily's true identity, information that completely changed her perspective on the entire case. "She's playing games with us," Jessica said. "First, she confesses participation in the crimes. Now she wants to reveal new secrets. She's a manipulator." "Perhaps," Dr. Chen agreed. "But if she really knows something about Lily's origin, we can't ignore it." The next morning, Dr. Chen and the prosecutor in charge headed to the prison to hear what Evelyn had to say. She looked visibly different, thinner, with deep, dark circles under her eyes, but her eyes maintained their usual calculating intelligence. "You found out Lily isn't a Sterling, didn't you?" she said, before any question was even asked. "How do you know that?" "Because I helped Richard create this whole charade. Lily was never Isabel's daughter. In fact, Isabel never had children." The prosecutor leaned forward. "Explain further." 5 years ago, Richard approached me with an unusual proposition. He had found a child in extreme danger, the daughter of people who had been murdered for getting involved with dangerous organizations. The child was gifted, extraordinarily intelligent, and Richard wanted to protect her. And how did you create the false identity? Isabel was infertile, but few knew that. When she got involved in a troubled relationship and then died in the accident, Richard saw an opportunity. We created false documents establishing Lily as Isabel's daughter, giving her right to the family inheritance. Dr. Chen was perplexed. But why do that? Because Richard discovered that Lily's biological family had been eliminated by very powerful people. Giving her a new identity was the only way to protect her completely. And Edward knew about this? Edward discovered the truth 2 years ago and saw an opportunity. If Lily wasn't a legitimate Sterling, he could contest the inheritance, but he could also use her as a shield for his own financial crimes. The revelation completely changed the dynamic of the case. If Lily wasn't a Sterling, who were her real parents? And why had her life been in danger from such a young age? "Ms. Hayes, who were Lily's biological parents?" Evelyn hesitated for the first time throughout the interrogation. "That's dangerous information. People have already been eliminated for knowing less than that. We are dealing with the safety of a child. I need you to be specific." Lily's parents were Michael and Laura Reynolds. He was a forensic accountant. She was an investigative journalist. They were investigating a corruption scheme involving high-ranking politicians and influential businessmen in several cities across Illinois. And they were murdered because of that investigation? Yes, but before they were eliminated, they managed to hide Lily and entrust her to Richard, who had been a friend of Michael's for many years. Dr. Chen left the prison with more questions than answers. If Lily's parents had been eliminated because of a corruption investigation, it meant that the girl could still be in danger, even with Edward and Evelyn in prison. Back at the safe house, he found Sarah in great anguish. "Dr. Chen, a court notification just arrived. Someone is questioning my fitness to adopt Lily, claiming I don't have enough financial stability." "Who filed this challenge?" "It's not clear. The lawsuit was filed by a law firm in Chicago that I don't know." Jessica, who had been quiet since the revelations about Lily's identity, spoke up. "This isn't a coincidence. If Lily's true identity has been discovered, the people who eliminated her biological parents might be trying to get to her." Just then, Lily ran into the room, clearly agitated. "Auntie, Sarah, there's a strange man outside the house. He's been looking over here for a long time." Dr. Chen ran to the window and saw a man in a dark suit standing across the street, talking on the phone while observing the safe house. When he realized he had been seen, the man quickly walked away. "We need to get out of here," Dr. Chen said. "If the wrong people found out where Lily is—" "Where can we go?" Sarah asked, picking Lily up. "There's a safe place I use for extreme cases. But first, we need to understand exactly who we're up against." Jessica approached Lily. "Sweetie, do you remember anything about your real parents? About Michael and Laura?" Lily closed her eyes, concentrating. "Sometimes I dream of a man who worked a lot on the computer and a woman who wrote in notebooks. They always seemed worried. Do you remember where you lived? A small house with lots of books and papers scattered around, and there were people who came to talk quietly with them at night. Dr. Chen made careful notes. Lily, do you remember the day you went to live with Uncle Richard? I remember my real parents cried a lot when they took me to him. They said I would be safe and that someday they would come back for me. The innocence with which Lily revealed these memories contrasted drastically with the gravity of the situation. She had been separated from her biological parents to protect her from murderers, raised with a false identity, and was now being hunted again by the same people who destroyed her original family. Dr. Chen, Sarah said with determination, it doesn't matter who Lily's biological parents are or who is threatening her. She's my daughter now, and I will protect her with my life. I know, Sarah, but we need to be smart. If we're dealing with people who eliminated Lily's parents and manipulated the entire judicial system for years, we can't underestimate the danger. That night, while preparing the move to the safe place, Dr. Chen received a call that left him pale. It was the prosecutor, he said, after hanging up. Michael and Laura Reynolds weren't just murdered. They were tortured before their elimination. Whoever is behind this desperately wants to find out something specific. Find out what? Probably where they hid the evidence of the investigation they were conducting. And now these people may believe Lily knows where that evidence is. The realization that Lily was not just a victim, but potentially the key to a much larger corruption scheme, placed all of them in an even more dangerous situation than they had imagined. The safe place was a secluded ranch 40 miles from Springfield, hidden among soybean fields and surrounded by dense woods. Dr. Chen had used the location before to protect witnesses in sensitive cases, and he knew it offered the temporary security they needed while trying to unravel the extent of the conspiracy surrounding Lily. During the nighttime drive to the ranch, Lily remained quiet in the back seat of the car, clutching her doll Isabel. Sarah constantly checked the rearview mirror, looking for followers, while Jessica navigated the dark rural roads. Aunt Sarah, Lily said suddenly, I remembered something important about my real parents. What did you remember, honey? Before they took me to Uncle Richard, my daddy Michael gave me a special gift. He said it was for me to always keep with me, that it was very important. Dr. Chen slowed down. What kind of gift, Lily? A necklace with a pendant. He said if I ever needed to prove who I really was, the necklace would help me. Sarah turned in the front seat. Do you still have that necklace? Yes, I do. It's hidden inside Isabel, Lily said, clutching the doll to her chest. Jessica pulled the car over to the side of the road. Lily, can you show us the necklace? Carefully, Lily opened a discreet zipper on the back of the doll and pulled out a small gold necklace with a pendant that looked like a miniaturized flash drive. The object was sophisticated and clearly not an ordinary toy. My God, Dr. Chen whispered, examining the pendant. This isn't just a necklace. It's a data storage device. Do you think it contains the evidence her parents collected? Sarah asked. It's very likely. Michael Reynolds was a forensic accountant. He would know how to hide information creatively. Jessica restarted the car, now even more urgent to reach the safe location. If this pendant really contains evidence, that explains why so many people want to find Lily. When they finally arrived at the ranch, they were greeted by John Davis, a retired police officer who managed the place for Dr. Chen. John, 58, was an experienced man who had worked on witness protection cases throughout his career. Dr. Chen, I've prepared the house as requested, John said, helping them unload the luggage. I checked all the security systems. No one gets here without us knowing. Inside the simple but comfortable house, Dr. Chen connected Lily's pendant to his laptop. After a few minutes of loading, the screen filled with files, spreadsheets, and documents that made everyone understand the magnitude of the situation. There are hundreds of documents, Dr. Chen said, leafing through the digital folders. Fraudulent contracts, bank records, conversation recordings. Michael and Laura compiled evidence about a corruption scheme involving dozens of politicians and businessmen. And look at this, Jessica added, flipping through another notebook. List of eliminated witnesses. There are 15 names, including Michael and Laura. Sarah hugged Lily more tightly. My dear, you were carrying information that could bring down very powerful people. Is that why they killed my real parents? Lily asked with a painful maturity for her 4 years. Yes, sweetie, but it's also why we're going to get justice for them. Dr. Chen continued to examine the files and made a shocking discovery. Sarah, look at this. There are documents showing that the corruption scheme included manipulation of adoption and child custody processes. What do you mean? They placed orphaned children under the guardianship of people who were part of the corruption network. These children were then used to legitimize money transfers and properties. Jessica paled. That means what happened to Lily with the Sterling family wasn't unique. There were other children being exploited in the same way. That night, while Lily slept in the front room, the three adults stayed awake, analyzing the evidence and trying to figure out how to proceed. The information was enough to dismantle a gigantic corruption network, but it also placed all of them in mortal danger. "We need to deliver this evidence to federal authorities," Dr. Chen said. "The scheme is too big to be handled at the state level." "But how do we know who to trust?" Sarah asked. "If politicians and judges are involved." It was John Davis who offered a solution. "I have a contact at the FBI, someone I trust completely. He can help us deliver the evidence to the right people." The next morning, while Dr. Chen made contacts with Washington, D.C., an even more disturbing discovery came to light. Lily was playing in the yard when she approached Jessica with a serious expression. "Aunt Jessica, do you know a man named Robert Jenkins?" Jessica choked on the coffee she was drinking. "How do you know that name, Lily?" "My real parents talked about him a lot. They said he was a very bad man who hurt children." "Lily, Robert Jenkins was the judge responsible for adoption cases in the region when you were a baby. If your parents were investigating him, he was part of the corruption network," Dr. Chen completed, who had overheard the conversation. "And he's still active. In fact, he was the one who signed the challenge against your adoption, Sarah." The revelation was like a bombshell. The judge who was trying to prevent Sarah from adopting Lily was part of the same criminal scheme that had destroyed the girl's biological family. "That means they know exactly where we are," Sarah said, instinctively picking Lily up. "Not necessarily," John pondered, "but it means we need to act fast." That afternoon, news arrived that changed everything once again. Dr. Chen received a call informing that Judge Robert Jenkins had disappeared from his home during the night, taking only a small suitcase and leaving behind his wife and children. "He fled," Dr. Chen said after hanging up. "He probably found out the evidence had been found. But if he fled, that means the other people involved also know," Jessica observed. As if to confirm their worst fears, John ran in from the property's security area. "Dr. Chen, we have suspicious movement on the access road. 3 vehicles with cloned license plates have been circling the ranch for 20 minutes. Through the security cameras, they could see dark cars with tinted windows advancing along the dirt road leading to the ranch. It was evident that they were not casual visitors." "How much time do we have?" Dr. Chen asked. 10 minutes, tops," John replied, already checking alternative escape routes. Sarah held Lily tightly. "Where do we go now?" "There's a trail in the back that leads to a secondary road," John explained. "My car is hidden there. You can get out without being seen." "And you?" Dr. Chen asked. "Someone needs to stay here to buy time and destroy any evidence that you were here." Jessica approached John. "You can't stay alone. It's too dangerous." "It's my job," John said simply, "and someone needs to protect this family." As they prepared for their escape, Lily surprised everyone with an observation that would change their plans once again. "Aunt Sarah, I know a place where we can hide. A place my real parents showed me before they took me to Uncle Richard." "Where, honey?" "A secret house in the city where my daddy Michael kept important things. He taught me how to get there if I ever needed to." Dr. Chen looked at Sarah. "If Michael Reynolds had a safe place, that might be our best option," Sarah agreed. But when they left through the back of the ranch, taking only the essentials and the digital evidence, none of them imagined that they were about to discover the final secret that would explain why Lily was so important to so many powerful people. A secret that went far beyond simple corruption and would reveal a truth capable of shaking the power structures of the entire state. The secret house was in a working-class neighborhood of Springfield, disguised among other simple residences that went unnoticed. Lily guided the group through side streets, her child's memory surprisingly accurate about the path she had taken years ago with her biological parents. "It's that one," she said, pointing to a small blue-painted brick house. "My daddy Michael said there would always be a key hidden under the 3rd stone in the garden." Dr. Chen found the key exactly where Lily had indicated. When they entered the house, they discovered it had been kept clean and tidy, as if someone regularly looked after the place. "Someone is taking care of this house," Jessica observed, noting the absence of dust and the smell of recent cleaning. "My daddy Michael had a friend who promised to take care of it until I grew up," Lily explained, walking through the living room as if she had never left. The house was modest but functional, with 2 bedrooms, a small living room, and a simple kitchen. But what caught everyone's attention was an improvised office in the 2nd bedroom, with sophisticated computer equipment and files. "Your mom Laura worked here," Lily said, gently touching a desk full of notebooks and photographs. "She wrote stories about bad people who did bad things." Sarah examined the notebooks left by Laura Reynolds. They were meticulously documented investigative reports, with names, dates, and evidence of corruption that extended far beyond what they imagined. "Dr. Chen, look at this," she said, showing a specific page. Laura discovered that the scheme wasn't just about embezzling money. They were selling judicial sentences, manipulating bids, and even eliminating inconvenient witnesses. "And look at this list," Jessica added, flipping through another notebook. "Names of politicians, businessmen, judges. Some of these people are in very high positions today." Dr. Chen quickly photographed the most important pages with his phone. "We need to digitize all of this. If something happens to us, this evidence cannot be lost." It was then that Lily went to a specific corner of the room and began to move a small bookshelf. "My daddy Michael taught me that if something bad happened, I should come here and open the secret hiding place." Behind the bookshelf was a small safe embedded in the wall. Lily knew the combination, her own date of birth, and when she opened it, it revealed even more incriminating documents and an additional flash drive. "These are backup copies of everything," Dr. Chen explained, examining the contents. Michael and Laura were professional journalists. They knew how to protect their sources and evidence. Jessica discovered a sealed letter with Lily's name written in Laura's careful handwriting. "Lily, your biological mother left a letter for you." With trembling hands, Lily opened the letter, although she couldn't yet read completely. Sarah helped her, reading aloud the emotional words of a desperate mother. "My dearest Lily, if you are reading this letter, it means we managed to protect you from the danger that threatened us. Your father and I discovered terrible things about people who should protect children, but who actually hurt them to make money." The letter went on to explain how Michael and Laura had discovered that orphaned children were systematically placed in families that were part of criminal schemes, where they were used to legitimize illicit financial transfers. "You are special not only because we love you, but because your exceptional intelligence helped us understand how the criminals operated. Your innocent questions led us to discover clues that adults couldn't see." Lily listened in silence, tears streaming down her small face. When Sarah finished reading, she hugged the letter as if it were a piece of her parents she had found again. "They were very brave people," Dr. Chen said softly, "and you inherited that courage." Just then, the house phone rang, startling everyone. Dr. Chen hesitated before answering, but decided it was important to know who knew that number. "Hello? Dr. Chen? It's John Davis. I managed to hide when the men arrived at the ranch. They searched everything but found no evidence that you were there." "John, thank God you're okay. How did you get our number?" "Michael Reynolds left me instructions years ago. If something happened and someone looked for his secret house, I should make contact." The revelation was surprising. "You knew Michael?" "He was my informant for years, when I was still on the force. He was the one who warned me about the fraudulent adoption scheme. When he and Laura were eliminated, I promised I would take care of the house and protect anything they had left for their daughter." "John, we need your help. We have enough evidence to bring down the entire network, but we don't know who to trust. I've already contacted my friend at the FBI. He's coming from Washington, D.C. with a special team, but you need to stay hidden until he arrives." "How much time do we have?" "A few hours at most. But Dr. Chen, there's something else. I discovered who the true leader of the criminal organization is." Dr. Chen felt his heart race. "Who?" "The state governor. It all started with him 15 years ago when he was mayor of a small town. Michael and Laura discovered this shortly before they were eliminated." The magnitude of the revelation shocked everyone. They were dealing not only with local corruption, but with a scheme that reached the highest echelons of state power. That's why they wanted to eliminate Lily so badly. Sarah understood. She's not just a witness. She's the daughter of the only journalists who discovered the truth about the governor. "Exactly," John confirmed by phone. "And if this evidence reaches federal authorities, the entire state government could fall. Lily, who had heard the entire conversation, approached Dr. Chen. "Does that mean my real parents were heroes?" "Yes, honey. They were heroes who tried to protect other children and expose very bad people." "Then I want to be a hero too," Lily said with determination. "I want those bad people to pay for what they did to my parents and to other children." Jessica hugged Lily. "You're already a hero, sweetie. You survived, kept the evidence, and helped us discover the truth." But the conversation was interrupted by an ominous sound coming from the street. Cars were approaching the house, and by the sound of the engines there were several vehicles. "They found us," Sarah whispered, running to the window. Dr. Chen quickly put all the documents and flash drives into a backpack. "Is there a back exit?" "Yes," Lily said. "But they probably know about it too." "Not necessarily," John said on the phone, who was still on the line. "There's a tunnel that Michael built connecting the house's basement to the sewer. Only I and you know about its existence." "A tunnel?" Michael was paranoid about security. He built several escape routes. "Lily, do you remember the trapdoor in the kitchen cabinet?" Lily nodded vigorously. "My daddy showed me, but said it was only for very big emergencies." "This is the biggest emergency possible," Dr. Chen said, as the sound of car doors slamming echoed from outside. When male voices began to surround the house, they were already descending through the trapdoor towards a narrow tunnel that would lead to their last chance of escape. But what none of them knew was that this escape would lead them directly to the final confrontation with the true mastermind of all the crimes, a confrontation that would define not only Lily's fate, but that of hundreds of other children who were still being exploited by the criminal scheme. The tunnel was narrow and damp, expertly built by Michael years ago as a last security measure. Lily guided the group with surprising knowledge of the way, her tiny hands touching the concrete walls to orient herself in the almost total darkness. "My daddy brought me here a few times so I wouldn't be scared," she whispered as they advanced. "He said if I always knew how to get out, I'd never really be trapped." Sarah held Lily's free hand tightly, trying not to think about the claustrophobia that was engulfing her. Dr. Chen followed behind, carrying the backpack with all the evidence that could bring down a state-level corruption network. Jessica brought up the rear, constantly looking back to ensure they weren't being followed. After 20 minutes of walking through the subterranean tunnel, they reached an iron ladder that ascended towards the surface. Lily stopped and pointed upwards. "This comes out at Mr. Albert's house, my daddy's friend. He always said if something happened, we should look for Mr. Albert." Dr. Chen climbed first to check if it was safe. The ladder led to the basement of a simple house, where an elderly white-haired man waited for them with an expression of relief, mixed with concern. "Lily, my girl," Albert Peterson, 68, said, hugging the child as if she were his own granddaughter. "When John called me saying you were coming, I almost didn't believe you were still alive." "Mr. Albert!" Lily exclaimed, running to hug him. "Did you take care of my parents' house like you promised?" "I did, sweetie, and I also kept some things they asked me to deliver to you when it was safe." Albert led them to the upper floor of his house, a modest but welcoming residence. On the walls were old photographs of Albert with Michael and Laura, showing that the friendship was genuine and lasting. "Albert, how much time do we have?" Dr. Chen asked, still out of breath from the tunnel escape. "John managed to confuse the men who were at the house. They think you fled by car, so they're searching the roads, but we don't have much time." Albert went to an old cabinet and took out a sealed metal box. "Michael gave this to me a few days before the murder. He said if something happened to him and Laura, I should keep it until Lily was safe." Inside the box were original documents, compromising photographs, and audio recordings that complemented the already collected evidence. But the most important item was a cassette tape labeled "Final Confession" for Lily. "Is that my mom Laura's voice?" Lily asked, delicately touching the tape. "Yes, sweetie. She recorded a special message for you, explaining everything they discovered and why they had to protect you." Dr. Chen put the tape into an old player that Albert kept working. Laura Reynolds' voice echoed through the room, filled with emotion and urgency. "My dearest Lily, if you are listening to this recording, it means we managed to protect you from the danger we discovered. Your father and I investigated very powerful people who were using orphaned children for terrible crimes." The recording continued for 15 minutes, detailing how the scheme worked and revealing specific names of everyone involved, including the governor and other high-ranking politicians. The most dangerous person of all is Charles Dawson, the current governor. He was the one who ordered our assassination when he discovered we had evidence against him. Dr. Chen paled upon hearing the name. The governor. That explains why the case was always sabotaged. He has the power to influence state investigations. But the evidence you have now is enough for federal prosecution, Albert said. Michael was very meticulous. He documented everything in a way that would be valid even years later. Just then, Albert's phone rang. It was John Davis with an urgent update. Albert, the federal team has arrived in Springfield. They're preparing for a coordinated operation, but they need the evidence to obtain arrest warrants. How can we deliver them without being captured? Dr. Chen asked. There's a safe rendezvous point. The city mall, food court, in 2 hours. The federal team will be disguised as normal customers. Albert hung up and turned to the group. It's risky, but it's our best chance. If we can deliver the evidence to federal authorities, the entire network will crumble, Jessica completed. But what if it's a trap? It's not, Lily said surprisingly. I know one of the federal team members. He visited my parents a few times when I was younger. How do you know that? I saw a picture of him in Mr. Albert's box. It's the same man my daddy Michael called friend from Washington, D.C. Dr. Chen examined the photographs and found the image Lily referred to. It showed Michael talking with a man in a suit in an official setting. If Lily recognizes him, maybe we can trust him, Sarah said. But we're not all going. It's too dangerous. I need to go, Dr. Chen said. I'm the only one with professional credentials to authenticate the evidence. I'm coming too, Lily said determinedly. They need to see that I'm alive and that I remember everything. Lily, it's very dangerous, Sarah protested. Aunt Sarah, my real parents died to protect other children. If I don't help now, other children will continue to be hurt. Lily's maturity once again surprised all the adults. Jessica knelt beside the girl. Lily, are you sure? Once we deliver the evidence, there will be no turning back. The bad people will know you're alive and that you have all the information. I'm sure. And besides, now I have a family that protects me, Lily said, looking at Sarah with unconditional love. 2 hours later, Dr. Chen and Lily were at the Springfield City Mall, disguised as a father and daughter, out for a normal stroll. Sarah and Jessica remained at Albert's house, monitoring everything by phone. The food court was bustling, with families eating lunch and children playing. It was the perfect setting for a discreet meeting. Lily subtly pointed to a table where 3 suited men chatted casually. It's the one in the middle, Dr. Chen, my daddy Michael's friend. Dr. Chen approached the table with Lily. The man she had identified looked up and nearly dropped his coffee upon recognizing her. My God, Lily? Is that really you? Hi, Uncle Paul, Lily said naturally. Did you come to help arrest the bad men who hurt my parents? Paul Martinez, an FBI agent, hugged Lily with genuine emotion. We've been looking for you for years, sweetie. We thought something terrible had happened. It almost did, Dr. Chen replied, discreetly handing over the backpack with the evidence. But she's stronger than we imagined. Paul quickly examined the contents of the backpack, and his eyes widened. Dr. Chen, this is enough to arrest half the state government. We can start operations today. And Lily, will she be safe? From now on, she'll be under federal protection until all those involved are arrested. But first, we need to record an official statement from her. Lily held Dr. Chen's hand. I can tell you everything I remember, Uncle Paul. I want the bad men to be punished for hurting children. As they walked to a more secluded area of the mall, where the federal team had set up a temporary office, none of them imagined they were being watched by security cameras remotely controlled by people who still had enough resources and connections to attempt one last desperate move to silence Lily permanently. The final confrontation was just beginning, and it would be fought not only in the courts, but on the streets of Springfield, involving everyone who had risked their lives to protect an extraordinary child who held the key to bringing down one of the largest corruption networks in Illinois history. Lily's testimony was recorded in an improvised room at the back of the mall, where the FBI team had set up state-of-the-art equipment. For 3 hours, the 4-year-old girl recounted with precise details everything she had witnessed, from her parents' murder to the recent threats. Agent Paul Martinez was impressed not only by Lily's photographic memory, but by her ability to articulate complex events clearly and chronologically. Lily, do you remember any specific conversation between your mother Laura and the people who threatened her? Paul asked. Yes, I do. One night, A man called our house and told Mom that if she didn't stop writing about the governor, bad things would happen to me. Mom cried a lot after that call. And can you describe that man's voice? It was a deep, kind of raspy voice. The same man who later came to the house when they messed with Mom's car. Dr. Chen observed everything with growing admiration for Lily's courage. With each question answered, she provided details that perfectly complemented the documentary evidence. Dr. Chen, Paul said discreetly, the information she's providing is enough to support arrest warrants for 15 people, including the governor. When will the arrests happen? Simultaneously, in 4 different cities, tomorrow at 6 in the morning. It will be a nationally coordinated operation. But while the testimony was being recorded, on the other side of the city, a desperate meeting was taking place at Governor Charles Dawson's official residence. Present were 3 men who had dedicated years of their lives to keeping the criminal scheme running. "The girl is alive and talking to the FBI," one of them said, an influential businessman named Daniel Thompson. "Our contacts at the mall confirmed it." "How did this happen?" the governor roared, pacing nervously around the luxurious room. "You assured me she had vanished permanently." "Edward and Evelyn failed," replied another man, former Judge Robert Jenkins, who had secretly returned to the city. "And now, we have hours before we're all arrested." "Hours to do what?" the governor asked. "To silence the girl once and for all," Daniel said coldly. "And everyone who's protecting her." The governor stopped pacing and stared fixedly at Daniel. "Are you suggesting we eliminate a child and federal agents?" "I'm suggesting we protect 15 years of power building. If this operation goes ahead, it's not just our freedom at stake. It's the entire system we've built." Robert Jenkins spoke up. "I have contacts who can make it look like an accident. An explosion at the mall, a gas leak. You've completely lost your minds," the governor said, but his voice betrayed his consideration of the proposal. Back at the mall, Paul received an urgent call from his security team. "Agent, we've detected suspicious movement in the vicinity. 3 vehicles with cloned license plates have been circling the mall for 20 minutes. "Immediate evacuation," Paul ordered, standing up abruptly. "Dr. Chen, grab Lily. We're leaving now." "What's happening?" Dr. Chen asked, picking Lily up. "Interception attempt. They're trying to prevent the evidence from reaching Washington, D.C. The federal team moved quickly, but when they exited through the back of the mall, they discovered that the accesses were blocked by armed men dressed as private security." "Uncle Paul, these are the same men who chased us before," Lily whispered, recognizing some faces. Paul immediately activated the emergency protocol, requesting reinforcements from the state police, but knew it would take time for them to arrive. Meanwhile, they needed to protect Lily and the evidence. "There's an exit through the underground parking garage," one of the federal agents said. "We can try to reach the cars." But when they went down, they discovered that the official vehicles had been sabotaged. Flat tires, damaged engines. It was evident that the interception operation had been meticulously planned. "We're cornered," Dr. Chen said, looking around the underground parking garage. It was then that Lily broke free from Dr. Chen's arms and ran towards a specific area of the garage. "This way. There's a passage that connects to the sewer." "How do you know that?" Paul asked, following her. "My daddy Michael taught me that every place has at least 2 exits. He showed me this one when we came here once." Indeed, there was a ventilation grate that gave access to the mall's service tunnels. It was risky, but it was the only option. One by one, the group descended through the tunnels, with Lily once again guiding the way with knowledge that seemed impossible for a child her age. "You know, Lily," Paul said as they walked through the tunnel, "your parents would be very proud of you." "I know," she replied simply. "I feel them with me sometimes, helping me remember important things." When they emerged 3 blocks away, state police reinforcements were finally arriving. Paul quickly coordinated an operation to surround the mall and arrest the men who had tried to intercept them. "Dr. Chen, I need you to leave the city immediately," Paul said. "Tonight, take Lily to Washington, D.C., where she'll be under federal protection until the arrests happen. And Sarah, and Jessica? They're already being escorted to a safe location. You'll meet in Washington, D.C." 2 hours later, Dr. Chen and Lily were on a private FBI flight bound for the nation's capital. During the flight, Lily remained quiet, looking out the windows at the lights of the cities below. "Are you scared?" Dr. Chen asked. "No," she replied. "I'm thinking about all the other children who will be safe after the bad men are arrested." "You think about other children a lot, don't you?" My mom Laura always said that when we're lucky enough to be saved, we have to help save others too. Dr. Chen smiled, impressed once again by Lily's emotional maturity. At 4 years old, she already demonstrated a sense of social responsibility that many adults lacked. Lily, when all this is over, what do you want to do? I want to live with Aunt Sarah and be happy, but I also want to learn to write like my mom Laura, to tell stories about brave people who protect children. You're already one of those brave people. I'm still little, but when I grow up, I'll be even braver. As the plane cut through the night sky towards Washington, D.C., in Springfield, an unprecedented police operation was being finalized. In a few hours, arrest warrants would be executed simultaneously across Illinois, dismantling a corruption network that had been operating for over 15 years. But what no one knew yet was that the evidence collected by Michael and Laura Reynolds was not limited to Illinois. The scheme extended to other states, and the courage of a 4-year-old girl was about to trigger the largest anti-corruption operation in American history involving child exploitation. Lily had survived, remembered, and testified. Now it remained to be seen if justice would be able to honor her parents' sacrifice and protect all the other children who still depended on brave adults to be saved. Dawn in Washington, D.C. would bring not only a new day, but new hope for hundreds of families who had lost children to schemes similar to the one that almost destroyed Lily. 6 months after the largest anti-corruption operation in Illinois history, Lily sat in the garden of a small but cozy house on the outskirts of Washington, D.C., drawing colorful birds while Sarah prepared Sunday lunch. Life had finally found peace after months of turbulence, hearings, and emotional reconstruction. The adoption process had been finalized 2 weeks prior, making official what already existed in everyone's hearts. Sarah was now legally Lily's mother, and Jessica, who had also decided to move to Washington, D.C., was officially her beloved aunt. "Mom Sarah," Lily called, using the term she had resisted pronouncing for months for the first time. "Can I show you something special?" Sarah approached, drying her hands on her apron. Lily had drawn a family, 2 adult women, a little girl, and in the sky, 2 translucent figures that clearly represented Michael and Laura. "I dreamt of my real parents yesterday," Lily said naturally. "They were happy because now I have a family that loves me, and because the bad men were all arrested." "And how did you feel in the dream?" "I felt complete, like all the broken pieces of my heart had joined together again." Dr. Chen arrived for the weekly family lunch, a tradition they had established since moving to Washington, D.C. He had become not only Lily's psychologist, but also a close family friend, someone who deeply understood the trauma they had all gone through together. "How was your week at the new school?" he asked, sitting on the grass next to Lily. "Very good. I gave a presentation on courage to my class. I told them how people can be brave even when they're small. And what did your classmates think? Some didn't believe I went through all that. But the teacher said that true stories are sometimes more incredible than made-up ones." During lunch, Agent Paul Martinez arrived with his wife and children for a visit. The federal agent had become almost an uncle to Lily, and his visits always brought updates on the progress of the trials. "Paul, how are the cases going?" Sarah asked as they served dessert. "Everyone's been convicted. Former Governor Charles Dawson got 20 years, Edward Sterling 15 years, Evelyn Hayes 12 years. The other involved parties received sentences ranging from 5 to 15 years. And the other children who were being exploited? We managed to locate 19 children in situations similar to Lily's. All were removed from the environments where they were being used and placed with foster families or genuinely caring relatives." Lily stopped eating and looked seriously at Paul. "Uncle Paul, are they going to be okay?" "Yes, sweetie, and part of that is thanks to your courage. Your testimony was fundamental in dismantling the entire network. But I just did what my real parents would have done. I told the truth to protect other children." After lunch, while the children played in the yard, the adults discussed something that had been talked about for weeks: Lily's professional and educational future. "She's officially considered a prodigy," Dr. Chen explained. "Her IQ is in the 160 range. She could easily skip several school grades." "But does she want that?" Jessica asked. "Actually, she has an interesting proposal," Sarah replied, smiling. "Lily wants to continue studying with children her age, but also do special activities that help her develop her talent for writing." "Writing?" "She wants to write books about brave children. She says she wants to tell stories that help other children not be afraid when they go through difficult situations. Paul nodded in approval. It would be a therapeutic way for her to process her own experience and at the same time help other children. That afternoon, after the visitors left, Lily sat on Sarah's lap on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in orange and pink. "Mom, Sarah, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetie. Do you think my real parents would be happy with the family I have now?" Sarah hugged Lily tighter. "I'm absolutely sure they would. They gave their lives to protect you, and now you are safe, loved, and happy. It's exactly what they wanted. And you? Are you happy you adopted me, even with all the trouble I brought?" "Lily, you didn't bring trouble. You brought purpose, love, and joy into my life. Before you came, I was just a lonely nurse. Now I'm the mother of the bravest and smartest girl in the world. I love you, Mom Sarah. I love you too, my daughter." 2 years passed since that afternoon on the porch. Lily, now 6 years old, had become a visibly happy and secure child, but she maintained her exceptional intelligence and genuine concern for other children in vulnerable situations. At her school in Washington, D.C., she became known not only for her exceptional grades, but for her ability to help classmates going through emotional difficulties. Teachers frequently sought her out when a new child arrived, traumatized or with family problems. "Lily has a natural gift for connecting with children who have experienced trauma," her teacher explained during a meeting with Sarah. "It's as if she intuitively knows exactly what to say." Sarah smiled with pride. She went through a lot, but she transformed her pain into empathy for others. That same day, Lily came home with special news. "Mom, Sarah, the publisher who read my first stories wants to publish a book." "Seriously? What wonderful news. It will be a book of stories about brave children who go through difficult situations, but find families who love them. And the best part is that some of the money I earn will go to a foundation that helps orphaned children." Sarah hugged her daughter, tears of pride in her eyes. Lily had not only survived the traumas of her childhood, but had transformed them into strength to help other children. "And what do you want to call the book?" "Birds Learning to Fly Again," Lily replied. "Because that's what I did. I was a wounded bird that couldn't fly, but you taught me that I could fly again." 6 months later, on the day of Lily's book launch, a crowd gathered at a Washington, D.C. bookstore. Dr. Chen, Paul with his family, Albert Peterson, who had traveled specially from Springfield, John Davis, and dozens of other people whose lives had been touched by the courageous story of a 4-year-old girl were present. Lily, now 7 years old, ascended the small improvised stage with confidence and maturity that impressed everyone present. "I want to dedicate this book to 3 groups of people," she said with a clear and firm voice. "First, to my real parents, Michael and Laura, who taught me that truth is more important than safety. Second, to my heart mom, Sarah, and to my Aunt Jessica, who showed me that family is who we choose to love. And third, to all the children who still need to learn that they can be brave even when they are small." After the presentation, while Lily signed copies for children fascinated to meet a writer their age, Sarah stepped back a little to observe the scene. Dr. Chen approached. "You saved more than a child, Sarah. You saved a brilliant future that will now light up the lives of many other children." "Actually," Sarah replied, "she saved me. Lily taught me that love can heal any wound, and that courage can come in the smallest packages." That night at home, as Lily wrote in her journal, a practice Dr. Chen had recommended to help her process her emotions, she paused and looked out her bedroom window. "Mom Sarah," she called. "Yes, dear?" "I had a good dream again. My real parents were there, along with you and Aunt Jessica, and there were hundreds of happy children playing in a huge garden. And how did you feel in the dream?" "I felt that my life had meaning, that all the bad things that happened had a purpose, to prepare me to help other children find their own heart families." Sarah kissed Lily's forehead and covered her gently. "Sleep well, my famous writer." "Mom Sarah?" "Yes? Thank you for teaching me that wounded birds can fly again. Thank you for teaching me that love can transform anything." And so, on a starry night in Washington, D.C., a girl who had survived the worst of human malice slept peacefully in the embrace of the best of human kindness, dreaming of a future where her story of pain transformed into hope would help hundreds of other children discover that, even in the darkest situations, there is always a light waiting to guide them back home.